What's up, guys? Guess who's back playing Albion? Yeah, so with the Beyond the Veil update, I decided to come back and start streaming again. I've been putting in a lot of hours in the Mist. I'm gonna start streaming from Thursday to Monday every week, and hope to see you guys on Twitch, twitch.tv/albionpewpew. Now, let's talk about why I'm making today's video. So, with the Beyond Veil update, on day one, we all know a lot of people really didn't like it. It wasn't a complete disaster for me. I thought it was a okay patch that could have been a lot better, but it wasn't like the worst patch ever. Like I've heard so many people say this is the worst patch ever, but like, have you played Corrupted Dungeons? Like, were you playing the game when Lance Awaken came out? No, I think this patch was actually a lot better than those, but it needs to be better yet. Like, there's a lot of potential for it to get even better yet, right? And props to SBI. The past few days, in the past few days, they've been giving us almost daily micro changes to kind of address the issues that we're complaining about to move this game in the direction that we wanted to go. And if they keep this up, I think we'll have a pretty successful content update. But that's it. Let's jump into today's video topic, which is balancing changes that are on the horizon right now. So I'm gonna pull it up on the screen right now so y'all can read with me. Ooh, Inception. Alright, so these are the patch notes, the NDA patch notes that were posted on Monday. And keep in mind that these are all subject to change, which is why we want to talk about it as early as we can to, let them know how we feel about it, basically. But let's get into it. So first of all, these changes are intended to go live with the first patch of Beyond the Veil. This will not be a big patch. This will not be a big balance patch, but a couple of adjustments to react to the current meta on the game. The main goal is to tone down the biggest mobility outliers and have a few adjustments and buffs for currently underused abilities. Okay? Now let's talk about this list of mobility outliers. Crossbow is one of those things that they want to buff, right? So it's one of those things that they believe was underused, and I actually kind of like this. I don't have a problem with this, but the problem that I have is axes, bows, and daggers, okay? Now, when it comes to mobility outliers, realistically, there is only one, okay? There is only one weapon in this entire game that is so fast that it's like Inner Focus Spear all over again, and that nothing can catch it, nothing can chase it down. If they go in on you and they win, you can't get away from them. If they go in on you and they lose, you can't catch them and kill them. Which weapon is that? I think we all know it's Battle Bracers. Let's talk about the nerfs to the Battle Bracers. Triple kick, cooldown reduction, cooldown increased by 3 seconds. And Falcon Smash, range reduction by 2 meters. So instead of a 50 meters dash, we now have a 12-meter dash. No, we now have a 13-meter dash, which is still the same range as a Spear E, right? And the triple kick, not 15 seconds anymore, 18 seconds, which is still shorter cooldown than a Spear E, right? Than a Bloodletter E, right? It's still a shorter cooldown than, let's say, a Carving Sword E, right? So basically, War Gloves are still gonna be the fastest weapon, right? If you look at bows, axes, and Bloodletters in the Mists, all of these weapons can die, right? They can, if they misplay, they can all get chased down and finished. Even with the whole Grey Wolf nonsense going on, we see a lot of them dying. The only weapon that we see that is basically immortal is the War Gloves. If you nerf War Glove, War Glove mobility, and you nerf axes, bows, and daggers at the same time, guess what? Nobody can chase down the War Glove anyway. So what the fuck is the point of it? Now let's talk about these other mobility outliers, as they call them. Well, actually, let's take a break here. What do you mean by mobility outliers? What are you comparing these weapons to? Are you comparing them to curses? Nature staffs? Because I don't think you are. Like, I don't think anybody wants to see mist content as, what do you call that place again? As the wilderness in RuneScape, right? I don't think we want to see Albion combat degenerating into just two curse staff players with double merc jacket guardian boots whacking each other for big numbers. I don't think anybody wants to see that in the mists. And I think people want to see the kind of combat that involves kiting, that involves like kiting out cooldowns, actually practicing your game sense, like actually using the environment, actually using this whole big ass map and not just like one little circle, right? So I think people want mobility. And if that's the case, how are any of these other weapons that's on this list outliers? They are not. They're not like so much more overbearingly fast compared to other weapons that people use. We're gonna go into each one of them and break them down, okay? Alright, so let's start with what I think is the second biggest elephant in the room, I guess. Frost shot on the bows. Bows are fast, right? They have a 15-second cooldown on frost shot, pretty long distance, got a slow on it, really good for kiting. And I think a lot of people are really frustrated with the way they can frost shot away from you to kite you and then still be able to chase you down with the same ability because it's on such a short cooldown. Compared to other mobility skills, we're not going to compare it to War Gloves because we all know War Glove is king now in mobility, but like compared to other mobility weapons like bloodletters, spears, swords, and axes, it's just one skill that has short cooldown, long distance, and it kind of covers for the fact that you only have one mobility skill. Like Bear Paws, for example, they have three mobility skills. Q, W, and E are all potentially mobility skills. With bows, you kind of have to keep up with all of that, and all you have on your weapon bar is a frost shot. Sure, you have your jacket. Sure, you have your helmet. Maybe you can do force field. Maybe you can do invis jacket. But other people have jacket and helmet skills too. Okay, keep that in mind. So a lot of times what we see in practice is when a spear gets on top of you, you frost out away, they harpoon you back in. You force field bop them away, they eat back onto you, right? And then you go to invis, they go to invis too, and they wait for your invis to come out. So and that's just with a spear. That's just two gap closers, right? If you're playing with if you're playing against a if you're playing against a War Glove, that's gonna be even more annoying, right? So if you do a blanket nerf like this, that's just like, okay, frost shot has more cooldown now. If you nerf frost shot too much, you're gonna kill the weapon tree. If you nerf it not enough, then nobody's gonna feel a difference. Okay, if it's a 3-second nerf, honestly, what I think will happen with a 3-second nerf is people run refreshing sprint instead of rejuvenating sprint, and they keep kiting with warbles, right? And they just keep playing warbles the way they are. But whatever, I don't think a 3-second nerf is really a make or break. But the issue is it's kind of a slippery slope, right? Like if all you do is just number push it, 3 seconds is not enough. Are you gonna do another 3 seconds the next patch? And if that's not enough, are you gonna do another 3 seconds the next patch? Like at what point does that stop, right? So what I think should happen with Warbows, at least with Frost Shot, is look at the identity of the weapon as the kiting weapon and say, okay, they need to be able to kite, but maybe we can make them less oppressive by just making frost shot worse for chasing, right? So for example, if you actually hit someone with the slow part of frost shot, it is a powerful skill. It's a low cooldown skill. But if you miss that slow, or if you're just spamming it to chase people, then it's got a longer cooldown, right? So it's good for keeping distance so you can kite, but less oppressive when it comes to finishing somebody off. I think something like that could be acceptable and not just like either do nothing or do too much, right? I don't think this is a good change. Like, I'm just gonna say, I don't think this is a good change. Now, of course, these are just my ideas. These are just, how I feel about bows and how I feel about the game state in general. If you don't agree with me, you think you got something better solutions, or you notice something else that's not quite right about these changes, drop in the comments and let me know what your solutions are. And yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys come up with. But back to what we were talking about. The other change about bows that's coming up, Ray of Light. So personally, I actually love Ray of Light. Back in the day when I just started streaming, I played a lot of Warbow, and I used Ray of Light almost the entire time. What's the word? Exclusively. Almost exclusively. So I like Ray of Light. I like that they're buffing it. It's, one of those skills that's like, it's a very impactful skill shot, and it feels really good to land it. And it's not gonna get used at all in the Mist. The Mist is different from the kind of Warble that I played back in the day when we were dungeon diving, and it's like a linear layout of the map, and you walk in this direction and you can stare at everybody that's coming from the other direction, and that's all you gotta worry about. In the Mist, everybody is everywhere. You're gonna get third party from people in the north, you're gonna get fourth party from people in the south. They're coming from all directions, and if you don't have the mobility to get out, you die. Alright, so I don't think people are gonna use Ray of Light. At least not in the Mist. Maybe they'll pick it up for instanced content, but I just don't see it being used in the open world. Unless you want to buff Ray of Light in a way that's like massive. Like, Ray of Light is now a mobility skill. If you land it, it gives you a movement speed buff. Or if you make it hell OP, like if the Ray of Light AoE covers your entire screen now, so you can snare all the rats all at once. Okay, I guess people will use Ray of Light. But a change like this, it's not gonna bring Ray of Light back. And I understand that, part of the goal of these changes is to kind of revisit some of these skills that aren't being used as much anymore, and maybe bring them back into the game. And if that is the case, look at Speed Shot. Like, I bet you that half of you guys that are watching this video right now don't even know that there's a skill in this game called a Speed Shot. Yeah, because nobody uses it. So maybe do something with that skill, maybe make that skill viable again. Can I say it? No, maybe just make that skill viable, because it never was viable, at least not when I played. Okay, let's talk about axes now. Razor Cut, Bear Paws. Range reduced by 2 meters. Energy cost also reduced. I guess it's a less powerful skill now, so you get to spam it more or something like that. Maybe that's the thinking. But, okay. I don't think this is necessary. I don't think Bear Paw's mobility is overbearing. I think Bear Paws is one of those, like, mechanically simple weapons that is really easy to outplay. Like, it might feel very powerful if you don't know what you're doing against it, but if you just dodge the E, hit it with a knockup while they're Eing, or something like that. And, the stuff I'm saying, like, dodging the E, like, every mobility weapon can dodge a Bear Paw's E, right? You can all just dash out of it. You can all, like, anything that has a CC can cancel in midair, right? So, just play good, like, don't nerf a weapon that's already, like, mediocre just because new players don't know how to play against it. It's a mechanically simple weapon, it needs to stay on top of you to do damage, and it needs all the mobility that it currently has to do that. Like, first of all, like 12 meters is already just like barely keeping you in range with all these things that are trying to kite you, right? With let's say Warbles frost-shotting away from you, with frost staffs constantly snaring you and blinking away from you, right? I think the way it is right now is just barely enough. And if you take that away, if you cut it even just a little bit shorter, it's going to make the weapon feel significantly less powerful. And if you can stick on top of someone, if you can stick on top of a kiting weapon as Bear Paws, you're just useless. And by the time that you lose your trade and you say, oh, I can't stick on top of them, I gotta run now. Guess what? You can't run with the Bear Paws, okay? Bear Paws are, even though they have 3 mobility skills, they're not like Work Gloves because their mobility is conditional. You gotta hit your E to get the cooldown, you gotta hit something to extend the duration of your W, and you gotta hit something to even have a mobility at all on part 3 of your Q, right? So it's not a unconditionally fast weapon to begin with. It's only like really good for going in one direction, which is chasing. It's not great for escaping, right? So if you outplay it, most of the times they die, right? So I really don't think Bear Paws need this nerf at all. Like it's not even like bows where like you can have a middle ground. It's like Bear Paws just don't need this. They just don't. Okay. Whew. All right. Next one. All right. Next one, and this is one that just crushes my soul when I even look at it. Lunging stab on Bloodletter, hitting a player below 40% health does not increase the cooldown rate anymore. Instead, hitting a player below 40% health now reduces the ability cooldown by 40%. In other words, you're not going to get every skill on your skill bar coming back faster, you're going to get only your E coming back faster. Why this nerf? I can think of only one reason, okay? They are looking at all the Bloodletter rats in the mist, and they're seeing how they would commit all of their skills, like their helmet, their W, their boots, and even their jacket, to just go in and finish a low target that somebody else is already fighting. And then they will use the cooldowns from hitting that execute to like get their boots back, get their W back, get their jacket back, so they can get away, like so they can loot up and then get away. Kind of toxic, not gonna lie. But here's the thing. 2 things, actually. This is a player-made issue, right? Like, if you're fighting someone and you see a Bloodletter rat coming in, stop fighting them. Like, you both know what's gonna happen if you let this rat you, right? You both lose, right? It doesn't matter, like, if you're a Bear Paw fighting a Batumbo, it doesn't matter if the Batumbo if the Batumbo is losing or the Bear Paw is losing, you are both going to lose if the Bloodletter pulls off his gimmick, because he's the one that's gonna get the loot, right? So stop fighting each other and kill the rat. Player made problem, player made solution. There you go. And the other thing is, these patch notes were posted on Monday before we had the nerfs to the mount mechanics, right? The mount health reduction and the 10-second dismount cooldown. So maybe wait a little bit and see if these mount changes are already enough to curb rats. Like, first of all, I don't think ratting should be completely deleted from the game. I think open world is open world. I think it's a place where it's supposed to be like lawless open world, right? The lawless Outlands. It's supposed to be a place where there are no rules, and if people want to come in here and rat, it should be doable. Maybe not as easily doable as they were when the patch dropped, but they should be, in the end, something that you can pull off, even as a fairly low skill player, okay? Because, let's face it, like, people rat because they're noobs and they're trying to make some quick profit so they can get into the game more, right? So, look, if you're 2 experienced PvPers and you see this rat coming in and you just let it happen, that's on you, man. Alright? And, that, okay, so player made problem, player made solution, and we are already answering rats with mounts, and maybe that's already enough. We will see. And if it's not enough, maybe you can do more mount based changes or stuff like that. But don't nerf Bloodletter. Like it's already a mediocre weapon for the people that actually love that weapon, that actually played it for a long time and want to use it in the mists. It's already a mediocre weapon because corrupted dungeons, right? When corrupted dungeons just came out, Bloodletters were OP, so you nerf the crap out of it already. You cannot spam the Q for mobility anymore, so the mobility of it is mediocre. Like you have a Shadow Edge, but that's a skill shot. You gotta land it. Like good players, especially like Warbow players, they know how to dodge a skill shot. They know how to dodge a Shadow Edge. So Bloodletters are actually already struggling keeping up with things like Frost and Warbows and Baton Bows. Okay, in terms of actually brawling with people, you already nerfed the damage on Chain Slash. Like it's already like just like barely on par with other brawling weapons like Bear Paws, or it's probably actually below par compared to things like One Hand Axe. Okay, first of all, if you're gonna nerf it again, feels bad, man, for all the Bloodletter players. Like they're just getting their weapons wrecked. And if you're nerfing it in the way that you're talking about, the 40% reduction, like that is the identity of the weapon. Okay? It's not the fact that you can execute someone that is low HP, because other weapons can already do that, right? It's not the fact that you can get your E coming back on a shorter cooldown. It's not even like an instantaneous cooldown either. It's a shorter cooldown. And guess what? Other weapons already have that. Like you have weapons in the game that already have such a short cooldown on their E that you don't need to land an execute or something. It's already like a 10-second or 15-second cooldown. You know what I'm talking about, right? You already have weapons in the game that can get a complete refresh on their E if you meet the conditions. I'm talking about Death Givers, right? So that's actually in the dagger tree too, right? So if you're gonna nerf Bloodletter's identity, you might as well just eat it out of the game, right? The only reason why people want to even use Bloodletter in PvP, not just a form of ratting, but like as actually like PvPing with other players, is this kind of safety barrier, you can say, against people that are trying to third party, right? So if you're playing a spear or sword or axe and you're chasing down somebody that's running away from you, right? Or you're just like getting into a fight and you're getting people low, and then you see somebody coming in from on the horizon, you see nameplates coming in, you have to start getting worried because do you finish the fight in front of you and risk getting third party and dying, or do you just ditch it, right? Do you just like ditch this fight that you just worked hard to gain an advantage in, and just let it go and survive? Bloodletter don't have to worry about that as much, because if you manage to gain an advantage, you can just stick on that target, and if you see people coming in, don't worry, just finish the target that you're on, and you're gonna hit that execute, that refresh, and you're gonna get your boost back, your jacket back, and you're gonna be able to escape, right? That's the reason why people want to use Bloodletters in actual PvP in the mist. So if you nerf it in that manner, like if you make it so that you can get the boost back faster, or the jacket back faster, or the W skill faster, then they're not going to use Bloodletters anymore, right? Then you're just eating this weapon out of the game. At least you're eating it out of the mists, right? Like, I don't know if Bloodletters are being used in other forms of content, and I don't know if like they will continue to use Bloodletter in other forms of content when this big nerf hits. Um, but at least, as far as the mists are concerned, Bloodletters are just gonna be joining Black Hands in the afterlife. Alright, so that basically concludes my rant about these upcoming changes. Just one more thing though, the mounts. Can we get this like right now? I don't want to wait for the next patch. Can you just like do this right now so I don't get Grey Walls mounting up right in front of my face while they're in combat anymore? Please?